Hello everyone and welcome to this session on presenting AdviserGo. My name is Marcely and I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes walking you through some of the presentation elements of the software. Alright, so this session is to give you an idea of what there is in the system and how to navigate to it in terms of presenting to clients. Now, of course, this isn't a one-size-fits-all approach as the details will vary depending on you and your clients, but hopefully this will give you some ideas and also show you what's in there and how to use it. First of all, though, we start by providing some context to the client on what cash flow planning is. I have attached in your GoToWebinar window, you should see a handout section, and I've attached a handout around explaining Voyant to clients. This is really just to give you a starting point and to give you some ideas. Now, I could attach it as a PDF due to the size, but if you'd like the Word version, again, just get in touch with us at support@planwithvoyant.com and you can use it as inspiration, take bit, leave bits, and so on. So that's the starting point. Then you've built your plan, you've built some what if scenarios, and you've got everything set up in the system like we have here for John and Janet. If you need help on this part, please go to our Voyant UK YouTube channel. So type in Voyant UK and you'll see we have videos on the data entry part, for example, which was our last webinar. Okay, so what we're going to do then, now the scene has been set and we've got everything in the plan that we want to show the client, is we're going to start in dashboard. And what we're going to do in this session, just so you can see the framework that we're working on, is I'm going to move from the left to the right hand side of the screen. So that's the general track that I'm taking, and I'll talk you through each of the screens in turn. So starting in dashboard, this is where we can run through what income and assets they have in the plan to achieve their financial objectives. And it's a nice place to double check the information that you've been given, and it's also what's being used in their cash flow projections. For the base plan here, this is the situation as is. So it can also be a moment to reflect on their current finances. Where have they got their money now and the advantages and disadvantages of this? For example, is it across multiple providers? Does it match their risk profile and so on? Now, there is an option here when you're presenting to hide this chart, because you may want to keep the chart for the big reveal at the end. To do this, go to the top right, silhouette, and click on that, and then preferences. And once you click on there, you can show dashboard chart, no. When you're in here, just be aware that inline help you can toggle on and off as well. Inline help is a really useful feature of the software where you can click on help buttons, any green dotted underlines or eyes in the system, and it'll pop up a help window. And again, if you want to, you can hide those as well. Once you're done, just come back into your preferences and click yes to these for when you're building a plan. So you see now I have no chart in here, I just have the items in the dashboard. You've got two options now when you are in here, is you could expand everything using this little downward arrow and it will show you everything in there. Or if that's a bit much, because it could be quite a lot of information, you can just expand each section one at a time and walk through them like this. For savings and investments and pensions, you have this show overview option, which basically gives you a little summary of their savings and investments, their total value, and it breaks down the accounts. You may well wish to leave goals until the timeline screen because they're highlighted nicely in the timeline screen, or you can cover them here. It's up to you which way around you want to do it. So now, if anything has changed, so they've spent some of this money or they've saved some more money, or maybe something's been missed, you can add it and change it within this screen. Edit by clicking on an existing item, or add something by going to the plus button bottom right to add. So this is really a chance to look through the inputs before you look at the outputs. Note as well that up the top right here, we've got assets by type. You can change this chart, for example, to assets versus debts or asset allocation. Let's now move along from the top right over to timeline. So we've covered what's in the plan to achieve what they want to achieve. Let's have a look at what their goals are and when they are. So it helps visualizing the future. It's bringing their key life events to life and shows them all on the screen with the different colors representing the owners of those events. So for example, if I want to hide the child's events, so what they've got planned for their children, you can just click on the icon up there and it'll hide their event on the timeline. Now, each of these little symbols and pictures represents something different. So for example, for these clients, they're retiring next year, and then they want to take some cruises, round the world cruises, in the first few years of retirement. Now, as I say, it can really help bring to life these goals and objectives over a number of years, and you can talk about when they are and how does that feel. So for example, in the goals, here's the round the world cruise. And when you've got it in a goal, you can also then see the monetary amount placed on that goal. To add a new event, you can double click above the bar here, or you can go to the plus button. When you click on an event, it will suggest a name, but you don't have to use that name. Just so you're aware, you can just change the name and change the owner to change the color and change the timing. Okay, just cancel out of there. What we can also look at is the stages. So here we've got the purple bar stage, living the dream, and then the slower years. So the initial years of retirement, we've got here as active retirement. They're going to be doing lots of hobbies. They've got cruises. There's some gifting to grandchildren. These are their big spend years. And then we're using the stages to say, okay, well, from your 80s, we're thinking we might slow things down a bit. And it's from here that there's lower expenditure in the plan and less holidays. And you can break your timeline up into as many different stages as suits. And what's nice is you can then replay that conversation you had and bring it to life with the stages and the events. So for example, if it's a pre-retirement plan, you could have an accumulation stage called savings, or you could call it protection years, and so on. Now, down the left, we showed the goals, and if you go over to the right, you hover over these and it'll highlight the events in the plan. So we've got all the key life goals and objectives, and you can run through what these are. And there may be a bit of homework here, because if there's only a retirement event and a mortality event in the plan, maybe it's a bit of homework to go away for the client and think about what else there is, and if there's anything missing, anything that needs changed, and how does it feel. Now let's have a look at the output. So if I go to Let's See and click on Single Chart, this is for the base plan. So this is the situation as is, and we're going to come on to a what if plan in a minute. So here I'm going to either swipe up or click up if I'm on a computer. Swipe up if you're on a touchscreen. You can also do that by clicking on Details here top right, and then click Hide All. So what this does when you click Hide All is you now see the total need, which is the black line, and it's the need that you're looking to fill throughout retirement. Now, this includes expenditure, goals, and any tax. What we can then do is bring the items one at a time into the plan to build the story and explain what the chart is showing. And it's nice to start, again, up to you, but it is nice sometimes to start with fixed income. So clicking on the circle here for employment, there's one more year left of earnings. And actually, if I hover over that, you see in the pop-up, there's some surplus income of around £25,000. Now, the black line includes all of their expenditure that they've given you, and the blue bar is their income. So here is immediately an opportunity to talk about, well, what is happening with this surplus? do you have surplus or are you spending it? Or is there opportunity to do something more positive with the surplus? And already you can get to understand and learn more about that money and in the net cash flow for that year. Moving forward into retirement, we've got the state pension and the DB scheme, but it's only quite a small part of their overall need in retirement. So potentially, very subtly, what the client might be getting now is the significance and value of planning, because there's a lot of red now which needs to be covered, and in this case, it will need to be met from their investments, money purchase pensions, and savings. So let's bring those into the plan. There's a money purchase, there's some dividends, and there's the savings and investments. Now this plan is focusing on decumulation. This is the base plan as is, and it's just assuming that when the clients retire, they use their pension. When the pension runs out, they look for the other assets. And we'll do a compare plans in a moment to have a look at different strategies, and I'll show you how to compare plans. So I'm not so much looking at this particular case here, it's more how do you present the case. So let's have a look at the other charts. Now, dependent on what you're trying to achieve from the meeting, you might want to go left or right first. So left to the cash flow chart is the taxes chart, and you can have the details on or off. And then right of the cash flow chart, and again, you can either click swipe or you can click this little right arrow here, is the assets chart. Now the assets chart is a nice one to have as a simple view. So by clicking details top right here, you can look at the pensions, investments and savings, as well as the property. If you want to take off the property, these are all interactive. So just click on non-liquid and it will show you the liquid assets only. And in fact, if you wanted to, you could click on details, hide all, and then just bring in one of their assets. Say you wanted to focus on their pension, what's happening with that? You could do that in this way as well. If I use the drop down here, you'll see all the different types of charts. And when you're using these right and left arrows, they basically circle through these in order. So it will go, if we go to the right, it will go to expenses, debts, net worth, plan worth, taxes, and then back to cash flow. Alternatively, you can just click up the top here where I've got assets and change to the different chart that way. The three main charts that you might potentially want to use: the cash flow details, which is the center, the taxes details to the left, and then to the right of the cash flow chart, the assets, and probably simple view, are deliberately the main three, either side of the cash flow chart. If you choose, you can present in real money terms, and to do that, click on the three dots and you can select real money. And you can also use the zoom function when you're in here. So if I click on zoom, for example, I can then click on the stage down here. So I just clicked on the purple bar, and in the stage, it will then can emphasize, okay, in this stage here, this is what we're going to discuss. This might be particularly useful for talking about accumulation versus decumulation. There's a little bit of blue left here, and if I just click on that blue bar at the bottom right, then the next stage will appear. And you can be flexible with which years you're showing and which part of the plan you're showing as well. This is the sort of screen where you do need to get used to how to navigate to the different charts and which bits of the charts you're going to show. Let's keep moving along the top then, so we get to legacy. Whether you go to legacy really depends on the plan and whether you want to talk about the potential inheritance tax. So if your client does have a potential IHT liability, it might be a nice place to go to say, in this plan, so you choose which scenario in this plan. You can do a comparison view, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes. In this plan, you've got a projected IHT tax, and you can also click on the dots and dashes to show the details. The insights. Let's go on to the insights now, because this is a really great area of the software and worth getting your head around these. They're almost pre-built plans in a way, so they save you a lot of the legwork in building a plan yourself because you can just click a button. So for example, let's look at retirement spending. All you need to do is click Get Started. And what it will do is it will assess how much the client would be projected to be able to spend every year in the plan in today's money indexed to run their liquid assets to zero by the end of the plan. Now it assumes that you don't sell the property, and it assumes that any funds that are ring fenced, like an emergency fund, remain ring fenced. And what it does is it takes out any current expenditure and replaces it with this one. So what this is saying is, John and Janet, you could spend around £83,000 every year in retirement index linked to replace their other expenditure. And it can give you a good idea of wiggle room, and also it can bring to life the differences between plans for the clients in terms of cash in hand to spend. Another good insight, which is a great conversation starter, is the loss capacity. It's a calculation to say how much the clients could sustain as a maximum loss given the assumptions in the plan and the percentage across their investable assets in that year, and also give you a pound sterling amount equivalent. There's other great, so in this case, the loss rate could be 34%. If you're in any of the insights and you're wondering what's going on behind the scenes, there's two ways to check. You can go to Year View, top right, and within the insight, you'll see the assumptions in that year of the plan. And the other way to know what is happening is by clicking on Insights and going to one of these eyes. So in the eye, it'll help do the pop-up window if you've got your inline help switched on, and you can go to the guide to read more about it. So have a look through these insights. They're great conversation starters. They're really there to instigate discussion and thought. So to recap, dashboard, we've reviewed the assets and income that are being used to meet the goals. Timeline, built a picture of these goals and when they are in the plan. Let's see chart, how at the moment, how is this going to happen? Let's visualize it. Legacy for IHT problems, and insights to really bring some of their plan to life. And a lot of the things in insights as well can help stress test the plan. So we've got this one, investment returns, market crash. We've got performance insight where you can say, well, what if the returns were lower each year than expected? And there's many others. If you have any questions on any of these, please just get in touch with us at support. So here, for example, their investments and pensions could return 0.32% each year and they'd still be okay in the plan. One final insight to draw your attention to, which is a really nice one, it's pretty new, is down at the bottom here. It will appear if you have a goal in the plan and you've got the goal priority analysis insight. This is a conversation on the impact of their goals, and what you can do is switch off certain goals and see the impact on the plan if you do this. So insights area really is there, as I say, to have that conversation starter option, and you'll have a look at these and you'll probably choose a couple that you like to use. Now we have a what if plan in this case. So we're going to click, and this brings us on to what if. So at the top right, I'm going to go to the recommendation plan. What we can do now is you could use the same technique for, if you needed to, walking through the what if scenario. So you could, if there were major changes in the dashboard and the timeline, start again on the left and walk through to the right. In this case, we've not changed anything in the dashboard or the timeline, but we have changed their decumulation approach. So we're going to start in the Let's See screen. And because I want to compare it to my base plan, in Let's See, I'm going to click on Compare Plans Chart View. And what this means now is that I can have both my base plan and my recommendation plan up at the same time to compare them. So I'm going to click on Details, If you want to, you can go to the three dots, click on Legend, and again, even in here, you could do the hide all and bring back in if you wanted to, or you could do that in single chart. And for this cash flow, you can see that it's now set up a bit differently in terms of decumulation. We could go to taxes and compare the projected taxes between the top recommendation plan and the base plan. We could compare the assets or net worth. And if you double click on a bar, or the other way to do it is click on year view, top right, we could go along to taxes here. In fact, I'm going to scroll towards the end of the plan, go to taxes, and we can look for the recommendation plan, the cumulative tax summary for John and Janet versus the base plan. And the cumulative tax is a really nice place in year view to say, okay, but by the end of the plan, what is the cumulative total of all these different sorts of taxes that have happened during the lifetime of the plan? Top tip here, when you're using, if you have two charts, so say for example, I've deliberately created one with a spike in it. If you have two charts and one has a spike and one doesn't, you see that the scale is different now. To rescale them, go to the top right and click on zoom. And what this will do is scale them so they're on the same scale as each other, even though one's got a spike and the other hasn't. And then you can use the plus magnifying glass to make them a little bit bigger in terms of seeing the bottom bit of the chart, and they're still the same scale. In the Legacy tab, you can do the same thing. So if we go to Comparison View, select the plan to compare to. So I've got my recommendation plan on the left, base plan on the right. Let's take off the details, so it's just the high level, and you can see the trends through different what-if scenarios in terms of the IHT tax as well. If you want to, you could then rerun your insights for the what-if scenario, and you could say, well, because we're saving tax, there's more money to spend. This means, for example, in this plan, the required rate of return in the base plan, I think it was 0.32, and now it's 0.02. Perhaps especially if the client has red in their plan and say you recommend a savings solution that eliminates the red in a what if, you can rerun, say, the retirement spending insight, and you can visualize, look, no red compared to the other plan. It's a really nice way to visualize the impact of saving. Moving along now, we can get to the report section, and as a potential idea, so here I've saved a report set. So if you boot the things you want over to the right, you can save them as a report set. You could have a report in the same flow as what we discussed. So the fact find and balance sheet, it's like your dashboard area, events and goals is a timeline, and then you can show the cash flow, the financial summary, which would be the let's see and the insights. We've got the estate analysis for the legacy. And once you've got them over on the right, note you can just click and drag them to move them to different parts of your screen. And if you want, you can add things in, or note as well, when you see the customize option on the right hand side here where my mouse is, you can click customize and you can change the chart in the financial summary report and take off any insights that you don't want to show for that particular report. Note that any of the insights that you see in the report section, for example, even the ones in the financial summary, these are all the same things as what's in the Insights tab up here. So if you want to know where the value is coming from or how it's worked out, just go to the Insights at the top and you can have a look at it, and then go to Year View to see the details. In terms of assumptions, so that's your plan settings or your assumptions report, which I've put down here, for example. It's good to mention this is a projection. It's based on many different assumptions. You've chosen these particular assumptions because, and this bit's of course up to you, you know, they're conservative, we've reviewed them as a firm and so on. And the chart is a projection based on these assumptions, and it will need reviewed regularly to check you're still on track. Any changes to lifestyles, goals, regulation, contributions, asset allocation, and so on can be factored in at future reviews. So just to recap, the starting dashboard, that's really the what are we here for, what are the objectives, what have we got in the plan, and the timeline, dashboard and timeline to do that. A couple of charts, a couple of insights, and then it's comparing to your other what if plans and doing your compare plans. You can compare legacy and you can rerun the insights. So as I say, finally, make sure when you go to your silhouette top right and you go to preferences, you have inline help switched to yes. There's two places you can go for help. You can click on the client name top right and request support, or you can go to the inline help. So say I click on that I here and the help tab, and that will give you our email address. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you would like, as I say, if you'd like the Word version of that handout, please let us know. All it remains for me to say now is thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it useful. Again, if you have any questions, please just get in touch with us at support@planwithvoyant.com. And if there's anything you'd like to see again, we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar tomorrow. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope to speak to you all on the support desk at some point.